joined by world explorer and best-selling author Robin Ezrock, who reminds us that travel isn't about distance. It's about courage, curiosity, and getting outside our comfort zone. Together, we're going to explore how adventure shapes who we are, who we meet, and who we become. Robin is an internationally recognized travel personality whose work spans television, print, stage, and digital media. He is the best-selling author of 8 books, including The Great Global Bucket List, The Great Australian Bucket List, and the national phenomenon here in Canada, The Great Canadian Bucket List, which we're going to talk about later, coming out in its 3rd edition this month. A former travel columnist for the Globe and Mail, MSN, and the Vancouver Sun, Robin is the creator and co-host of Word Travels, a 40-episode television series syndicated on National Geographic and the Travel Channel International. In more than 20 languages, it is syndicated. The series has also appeared on OLN, City TV, PBS, Hulu, Tubi, MTV, and Prime Video. And I even have more words to come, and letters and acronyms. Here we go. Robin's award-winning writing and photography have been published in major outlets around the world, including the Chicago Tribune, the Guardian, the Toronto Star, the National Post, the Melbourne Age, the South China Morning Post, and National Geographic. He has been featured as a bucket list travel expert by 60 Minutes, Travel and Leisure, the Wall Street Journal, CBC, CTV, ABC, CNN, MSNBC, and many others. He is a Lowell Thomas Gold Medal winning writer and a contributing editor for Canadian Geographic and a fellow ambassador at the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. He has spoken widely about the joy and impact of travel. See the Explorers Club annual dinner in New York, sharing the stage with Buzz Aldrin and Ken Burns, and his TED Talk, shared here in the show notes with you, has been viewed over 1.1 million times. Having reported from 120 countries across all 7 continents, he continues to inspire audiences of all ages. Born and raised in South Africa, he now lives in Vancouver with his wife and 2 children. Robin Ezrock, welcome to the Flourish Feed podcast.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Now, you've said in our back and forth so far, since you and I have been getting to know each other, that travel shapes who we are, who we meet, and who we become. What part of yourself did travel help you discover that an ordinary life never could?
Question off the bat. We're jumping right in, are we?
We're jumping right in, and then we're going to move.
Anybody who travels for a long time tends to be running away from something or looking for something, right? And for me, that's really what described the case when I first set out on my big 1-year around the world adventure that really kicked off my career as a travel journalist and a broadcaster.
And when was that? How old are you?
I was turning 30.
30, okay.
Quite late in the game. I had backpacked quite a lot in my early 20s. I'd been bitten by the travel bug. My parents didn't travel a lot. I didn't grow up in a traveling mad family at all. But my reward for getting really good grades in high school was a international hop-on, hop-off bus trip with some of my mates in Europe. And that just did something. You know, to travel by, it's the one bug you don't mind being bitten by. And it always stuck with me. And I'd backpacked a few different countries. If I had the opportunity, I'd save up money and I'd go backpacking. And you'd meet these people on these big 1-year adventures, these round the worlds, we would call them. And you're like, who in their right mind gets to do this? Who actually can structure their life in such a way that they can go traveling for a year? And it just seemed like an impossible dream as I pursued various careers. And I had various careers and did well in some, didn't do so great in others. And approaching my 30th birthday, I found myself in a job that I didn't enjoy, was uninspired. I'd broken up with my long-term girlfriend of my 20s, so I was single. All my friends were getting married. There were 4 weddings in the summer. I was the best man at 2 of them. You know, everybody was getting married, settling down, buying houses, and I just felt myself adrift. And that's what I was running away from. What I was looking for was, well, what next? You know, what's out there? But it wasn't as simple as just making that decision. I really needed something to kickstart it. And I think many people do. You need that moment that usually it's something tragic or an injury or fall or an illness. In my case, it was an accident. You need something to shock you out of the complacency and remind you that if you're ever going to do it, it's time to do it now.
So many places I could go with that, but let's start with the dream, because the dream that people have of looking at somebody who's going for a year around the world, or finally doing the big bucket list set of things that they want to do. I mean, that's something that you could have at any age. You happen to have it triggered by like a bottom moment, a bit of an injury kind of moment. Other people tend to have it when they figure they've finished their working life. Is there a perfect time to jump in and finally do the thing based on age, or is it really about the depth of that triggering moment? What's your experience been?
It's not about age. It's never been about age. You're never too old to do anything, and quite frankly, I don't think you're never too young to do anything either. What really set my mind to this idea was my grandfather, who had a stroke in his 60s. So he was a very old grandfather at quite a young age. And he was a traveler. He had my restless spirit. And he also used to have the first Super 8 cameras. He was one of these guys who loved exploring. And he sat me down one day and he said, I always thought I would go out there and see so much and do so much more. And then I had a stroke. And by the time I had the resources financially to go out there and do the things that I wanted to do, my health wasn't there to allow me to do it. And that really made an impression on me. I must have been about 13 or 14 years old.
So it started brewing at that age even. So coming back to the dream, and whether we execute on the dream because of an injury or we execute on the dream because a seed was planted like it was for you when you were 14, what do you think happens inside of us, maybe like emotionally or psychologically, when we finally step out of our comfort zone and we take that risk? What happened for you, and what do you think happens to people?
It's a bold move. It's a jump into the unknown. And that is what prevents people from taking this big step, or the what ifs and the maybes, and balancing on one side, what if all these bad things in your mind will happen, balanced with the coulda, shoulda, woulda, which is something that a lot of people carry with them all their lives. I should have, I could have, I would have, but. Mm-hmm. But then on the other hand, you go, well, if I do this, look at all these things that can go wrong. And we're surrounded by negative information all the time. This is something I really speak about a lot, is how a 24-hour news cycle works on the principle that if it bleeds, it leads. Mm-hmm. Fear and disaster and tragedy is what drives attention, and that attention is what drives advertising revenue. Mm-hmm. So the result of all of this is that we're constantly bombarded with negative information, which gives us the impression that it's a very dangerous world out there. Yes. The moment we get off the plane, something terrible is going to happen. We're going to pick up a weird disease, that people are going to rip off our identity. You shouldn't go here, you shouldn't go there. You can get sick. There's so much that can go wrong, because that's all we ever hear. When I speak to folks who are afraid of flying, they're always amazing how they always know about a plane crash. But they 99.9% of the planes that take off every day all around the world, thousands and thousands of planes.
The volume is,
statistically, it's almost negligible of any kind of risk. And yet you remember, because we're hardwired to pay attention more to the fears.
And so stepping out of our comfort zone allows us to face that fear, to take that leap you're talking about. Let's talk about that as an approach, which I will refer to as dosing. We're dosing ourselves with the taking of the leap, the taking of risks. Before we started the call today, we were talking about your children who have been doing this from a very young age. You were maybe 30 by the time you took the big leap. But if we were to look at dosing travel as a way of facing anxiety, is it something you should do annually? Is it something you can actually fit into even a shorter and a tighter radius around you? Like, is it an approach to life maybe that develops, or do you have any kind of guidance on that?
Yeah, your dosing is a really great word for it, especially when you put it in the context of a media diet. I think that's where you should start. When you eat a lot of garbage food and you feel terrible, it's a really good idea to go on a diet to feel physically healthier. And when our brains consume a lot of garbage information, it's a really good idea to go on a media diet, to start turning off the stuff that's just putting really negative ideas in your head, that's making you feel like the sky is falling and we're in this black hole that we're never going to climb out of. because it's always going to be like that. And that's what, quite frankly, mainstream media is designed to make you think. But there are other forms of media, positive media, inspiring TV shows, books, anything. David Attenborough, I mean, is just a great place to start. Podcasts, YouTube channels. I mean, there are inspiring things out there that just tell a different story. And as part of your media diet, I'm not saying turn off the news completely. We want to be informed, but we also want to balance that diet with positive information that just give us a better reflection about what's actually going on out there. So that's where I would start with your dosing, is a better dose of positive information. And then travel itself is a very, very powerful form of positivity. You seldom hear anyone who goes on some amazing trip coming back going, I hated every second of it.
Right. Yes.
And even when things go wrong, we have a fantastic ability to reframe those experiences into something positive.
Sure do.
Overcoming a challenge. Those are the stories we often remember, that one crazy time when that crazy thing happened. And we learn from those experiences. You come back and you feel just better adjusted for the world we live in.
Yeah, that makes it part of the adventure. And as a mom of two boys myself, whenever we would go on travels, particularly when they were a little younger, they're in their late teens now, if something didn't go perfectly, I would almost feel a sense of responsibility that I was supposed to make it go perfectly. And then I was reminded by them as they aged, hey, that's part of the fun, is that when something goes wrong, that's the thing, like you said, that we remember. So when it comes to the doses of adventure that your kids have had, let's go there, and then we can kind of backtrack into your life as a journalist and the travels that you've been on and what you've witnessed. What's their experience of dosing been? Do you see that there's a relationship between the kind of media that they're exposed to and the kind of travel that they get? Have they had such a rich life of travel that media is almost of no interest to them because they know so much more is out there? How does it relate for them? They're 9 and 12, you were telling me.
Yes, and my daughter was 6 months when we did our first she came with me on a national book tour across Canada when she was 6 months old. She's been now to 15 countries on 6 continents, including scuba diving. She's got a PADI scuba diving license certification, so we scuba dived the Belize Barrier Reef. We just did the Grand Train Tour of Switzerland a few months ago. Egypt. I wrote the Australian bucket list and my kids came with me. So, we did everything you could do in Australia. My kids have a very interesting attitude towards travel because they think this is normal and this is what everybody does, as much as I try and convince them otherwise. They're also very different personalities. So it's interesting to see how my daughter got whatever I got and whatever my grandfather had, with this restlessness, this go, 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 I want to do it. We just went paragliding and in the Alps, and she didn't say, I'm afraid to go paragliding. She said, can we get to a higher mountain? Whereas my son is the complete opposite. He's a very cautious, creative kid. He's quiet. He loves drawing. If you put him saying we're going to jump off a mountain, he'll say, absolutely no way. Very different personalities. And, I always say, some people like to plan every aspect of their trip and some people like to go with the flow, and those people end up marrying each other.
Hopefully. Yeah, opposites.
And also as siblings. They also tend to be siblings as well. So what I actually like to do is switch them up and bring my son on some crazy adventures to push his boundaries, to show him the challenges, to let him figure it out and overcome it. And it takes him a while to reflect on it or to internalize what he's learned, but then it becomes way more meaningful every single time. Whereas my daughter, if she's not jumping off something, she's, let's go, Dad, what's next? What's next? So, I think we try and expose them to David Attenborough, to the planet Earth, to this kind of thing. But there's something that we've also got to be aware of with this kind of media, and that is expectations. When you watch this kind of stuff, you say you watch a lion take down a giraffe on the Masai Mara on an incredible documentary, and then you go to the Masai Mara, chances are you're not going to see a lion take down anything. Yeah. And if you do, it's way in the distance. It's kind of like whale watching. It's marketed as a humpback is going to breach and splash you. It's like, no, 9 times out of 10, you're going to see a tail in the distance. And this is the expectations that we create, in the tourism industry itself, but also what we bring with us when we go on any adventure or any vacation, about what it is we want to see and what we want to achieve. And the higher we set that expectation and that sense of entitlement that you deserve it because you're paying for it, the more disappointed I can guarantee you're going to be.
That brings me to the point about luxury versus maybe bootstrapping your travels. You've probably experienced both, I imagine. Maybe back when you took that trip when you were 30, was that on more of a budget sort of situation? Do you think that obviously you get a different result out of the experience, but what would you actually prefer? Like, what gives you more joy and value?
Yeah, yes. On that 1 year trip around the world, my budget per day was 35 Canadian dollars a day, including accommodation, food, and activities, for $35 a day. So you can imagine. Very social trip, a lot of adventure, no planning, no trips, meeting people, going with the flow. These days, I prefer definitely a comfortable bed and a nice restaurant. There's no wrong or right way to travel. There never has been. It's a very personal thing. I've evolved as a person, and so my traveling has evolved. In
Of course.
travel writing, in travel journalism, generally you start with adventure and budget travel, then you get into romance and couples travel, then you get into family travel, and then you start kind of morphing into a bit of luxury, food and wine. All roads end with golf. And I look forward to that day when,
I was going to say, do you have a golf travel book? I don't think you do. You're going to have to do that next.
I mean, I can schedule it in about a decade where I'm
Yes.
like, okay, I'm going to all the best golf courses in the world, and I'm just going to focus on golf. But it shows just how things adapt and grow and evolve as you age. And yeah, it's a very different experience, obviously, to travel as a budget. I mean, I've met very wealthy people who travel like independently. They love backpacking. They stay in hostels because they enjoy the social aspect of it. I've met people who don't have a lot of money who aspire to luxury travel, and I think they'll be quite disappointed. I remember I was hosted by the Malaysian Tourism Board, by the Malaysian government, during that 1 year trip around the world, and I just spent a month in India. So I was staying in some very interesting places on my budget. Although $35 a day in India, I felt like a king. And then I went from Mumbai to Kuala Lumpur, where they put me up in a 5-star hotel. And I walked in with my backpack, and I had a cake of dust, like I hadn't had a proper shower in a month. And I went up to reception, and I said, I believe you, I have a reservation here. And they looked me up and down, and they said, no, there's a hostel down the road. And I said, no, this is what I've got. This is the hotel. And they're like, and they looked, and then I was there, and I must have had some kind of VIP because I was a journalist. And their attitude changed, and I got upgraded, and I remember walking into this room that was bigger than my apartment, and I think I had a bubble bath, and then got out, dried, and then had another bubble bath.
It felt so good, and yet you weren't quite clean yet, so you went back in. That's remarkable. You sound like the Indiana Jones of travel. And I have to ask, too, when you're talking about the golf book that you can almost schedule right now, and you've done these various chapters of your life where you did the Great Canadian, the Great Australian, etc., what are some of the other chapters that you as a creative see ahead of you as far as books you want to write or trips you want to take or adventures you want? Are they in larger groups? Are they solo? Do they really involve your family as they grow? Is it all the above?
It's all of the above. I travel with my kids whenever possible because I think it's just an incredible opportunity to take them places and show them the world that they would never normally see. And I don't personally take any of this for granted. Every year I tell my wife, I don't know, it's going to be another interesting year. The media is fragmenting. It's getting harder and harder to make a living with this kind of stuff. AI is an existential threat for all media at the moment. And yet every year something comes around and off we go again on another big adventure. As I keep going, my focus has always been on unique experiences, things you can't do anywhere else. Because I find that you can only be in a rainforest so many times, or a desert, or a mountain, you're skiing. And then I feel like, well, what is this thing that you can really not do anywhere else in the world? And I wrap that in this idea, as corny as it is, of a bucket list. The Great Global Bucket List, I wrote that book. That was only the first 10 years of my career. I mean, every 2 weeks I'm adding chapters to the Canadian and the Global Bucket List. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm always amazed at the opportunities that keep coming my way, and always surprised at when you think you've seen it all, then you realize you haven't seen much at all.
No, that's actually great, because sometimes I feel like the world's getting smaller, and I don't mean that from a travel perspective. I actually mean that from maybe a network perspective, or what you think you're getting on social media, what you think you're getting through exposure through the media diet that you might or might not enjoy. But then when you get out there and you take a plane somewhere and you realize just how rich the very supermarket is, even in some places, it is a truly thrilling cultural experience to go anywhere in the world that is a little bit different. So you've explored more than 100 countries, I understand. What patterns have you observed in cultures that seem happier and more connected? And I don't mean to say that we're not happy or connected, but for sure we know that there are cultures out there that have it going on a little bit more so in those definitions. So what have you noticed?
This shocks my kids, but I tell them all the time, wealth has very little to do with it. You can go to a wealthy country and you can surround yourself with wealthy people, and you'll find them to be they're just having the same issues as anybody else. The happiest people I've found almost directly correlated to the poorest countries I've visited. And you think, why is that? Why is everybody smiling in India and Africa? Big toothy grins. It's so delighted to meet you and to encounter and to have a conversation. And the way I see it is just the simplicity of their lives and the focus on community. Community is such a big part of their culture. And that community directly corresponds with personal happiness. This feeling like somebody's got you and you've got worth and you can contribute to something that's bigger and greater than oneself. When you go to a all-inclusive, decadent 5-star hotel bubble experience, I have this very unique perspective because I'm not personally wealthy, and yet I do get into those bubbles a lot. Mm-hmm. And I'm amazed to see how people are complaining about amazing food, or the wine is good, but it's not great, because the bar keeps getting raised.
Yes.
And if all you ever do is stay in a Fairmont or Four Seasons, then that's what a basic hotel room now looks like. So that becomes the groundwater's raised. This is the base. And where do you go from there? Where do you go? Okay, so now you've got to go to a St. Regis. Okay, it's very nice, but it's just it's incremental steps. Whereas if you go from a Holiday Inn to a Four Seasons, then you really go, wow, okay. I mean, it's still a bed and a bath and a TV, quite frankly. And there's nothing wrong for me. Holiday Inn is fine. It's a bed and a bath and a TV. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But you feel the difference. I did an incredible experience this year in France on a luxury river barge. Oh, it was incredible. It was a gourmet. The food and the wine were just unbelievable. And we're drinking 200 euro bottles of wine, 4 bottles of wine, different wine a day, with 9 different cheeses a day from around France.
Wow.
And after the third day, you're just like, this is what normal it looks like. And after the 5th day...
It's funny how our brains adjust to that being normal pretty quickly, hey?
And I was like, how am I going to go back to a $25 bottle of red after drinking this? And it almost makes me feel pity for people who only have that good stuff, because they don't get to experience the joy of that treat, of that incredible moment, that experience, whether it's food or landscape or, even a car. I went to Italy and visited the Lamborghini factory and the Ferrari factory on the same day as a VIP, and I got to drive a Lamborghini and a Ferrari. And it was, that day actually changed my life, because as a kid, I used to have posters of Lamborghinis, and I used to think, one day I'm going to drive a Lamborghini. It's like my bucket list. And I finally got behind the wheel of a $400,000 Lamborghini, and I went for a drive, and I thought the heavens would part and confetti would fall, and it would be like, oh. And I felt great for about a couple of minutes, and then I was driving a car.
Yeah, there you go. So that brings me to a question about what I'm going to just refer to as dopamine detoxing, which is that when you take something away, like you take away the fancy cheese, you take away the fancy wine, you live in a hostel, you travel on a shoestring budget, and then you reintroduce these luxury things, all of a sudden the everyday commonplace things actually can feel like luxury. So if someone were to go on what I will call a dopamine detox trip, what would be your favorite one at your age to go on currently in the world as it is now?
I took the kids a road trip, any kind of a road trip, I think, where you can follow your nose, where you're not planning that much far ahead, where some days you're going to end up staying in some funky motels because that's just all there is, and you're in a small town and you got to, and some days you can certainly crank it up a few notches. Going on any kind of a road trip, I mean, depending how old your kids are, if you're traveling with a family, multi-generational, I think really ticks that box. You know, the difference between an adventure and a vacation is if you don't know the outcome of your trip, you're having an adventure. If you wake up and you're like, I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go today. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm just not exactly sure. That's an adventure. A vacation is, I know exactly how it's going to turn out. And going on an adventure on a road trip, whether it's, you know, in Canada, you can rent an RV if you don't have an RV and go on an RV trip. I mean, you don't have to commit to that lifestyle and lay out that investment. Right. You can just rent an RV, jump in it, load it up with the kids, load it up with it, and hit the road. And that you'll have an adventure. You're going to meet some amazing people. That's a very interesting community of RVers, and see places you wouldn't normally see, and have this freedom, this liberation of traveling with everything you need with you. Yeah, so I would throw that in there as a way
road trip. Yeah, I love that because it's simple, it's accessible. But I think the thing that prevents us, maybe not us, but I mean, I kind of am perceiving and generalizing here, is that we think that the way we travel somehow now forms our identity, and that we now have to wear that now that we've done an RV trip, we're RVers. But that doesn't have to be the case. You can try on all these identities. That's the beautiful thing about travel, isn't it?
Exactly. I'm a generalist, so I've done just about everything you can imagine, but I'm not particularly good at anything. You know, I scuba dive, I motorbike, I've skydived, I paraglide, you know, multi-day bike rides, hiking, but I wouldn't say I'm any of those particular things as part of my identity. And
right.
Kudos to people who are. I'm actually quite envious of them. I'm like, wow, you love it so much that this is what your life has become. You know, you love running, so you run everywhere you go, and this is you do marathons. I'm like, amazing. I'm super like, wow, I would love that. For me, I just do all these different things, and I get something out of every single one of them, and it kind of warms my heart. And I'm like, what's next? What can I try next? And, you know, to be able to say I've paraglided on 5 continents, a tandem, not by myself, is amazing because I can compare them. But I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of paragliding at all. It's just
a cool way to see.
It's a cool way to have an experience.
Yeah, for sure. Earlier, you were talking about these small villages and so forth in Africa and where you've been, where people have less. They live a very simple life. And yet community is such a big thing. And that made me think of something that we kind of wrap part of our Flourish framework around, which is this Harvard study of adult development that was started in 1938. It still goes on to this day, where the study summarizes that for people who've been studied in the study, the longest, happiest, healthiest life, the number one thing is positive social relationships is what defines a solid existence, a joyful existence. The second one is purpose. So I'm curious, in your travels of where you've been, where you see the greatest amount or feeling of mattering and connection through all age groups. Is there kind of a metrics of purpose in different cultures as well?
Well, from a tourism point of view, volunteerism is a really rich and rewarding way to travel, right? To travel somewhere with the distinct purpose of I want to give something back or contribute something towards the communities in which I'm visiting. And you can do this in any number of ways. You know, I've volunteered with elephants, rescued elephants in Thailand. I mean, that was incredible because you have this wildlife encounter as well. You know, visiting communities. I'm taking my kids, we're going to Brazil in a couple of weeks. I'm taking them into a favela to spend a day volunteering. You know, we're going to be helping out. I'm not quite sure it's through an organization, but I was like, put us to work.
Yeah.
We want to help. And I can almost guarantee that experience will have a much bigger impression on them than going to the beach another
100%.
day.
Absolutely.
So from a tourist, from a traveler, there are ways to kind of tap into that. Within communities themselves, I don't know, I see everything through the prism of tourism as a travel journalist. I did a story in Sri Lanka that was incredible about a Dilma, the tea company. So it's a huge tea company out of Sri Lanka, just about all their social purpose initiatives. And we got to go get my hands dirty in the tea fields with the tea pluckers, they call them, and see how They look after everybody. They create schools, healthcare. They really try and raise everybody up who don't have opportunities. And it creates this really warm glow, both around working for their company and the environment in which they work, but also the product itself. So when I see that product, I'm like, oh, great. It makes me feel good. I am kind of do have my bullshit detectors up a little bit about it, people trying to show me things and that felt very genuine and very sincere. And that comes from the top down, right? That's a business initiative to have a social impact.
That's lovely. Are there resources for Canadians specifically? Maybe not just Canadians, anybody. For example, the trip you were talking about with your kids where you're going to Brazil to work. How did you find out about that? Are there things that we'd be able to share in the show notes that you'd be able to share as resources, or are they?
Yeah,
how does that happen?
If you just type volunteerism.
Volunteerism.
Volunteerism. Volunteering with tourism. I mean, every major, first of all, I don't begrudge anybody who goes through a pack tour company. I think they're fantastic tour companies which have a lot of incredible social initiatives. Intrepid is a great one, Exodus, Gap, G Adventures. So if you just type in those guys and throw in volunteering, they'll come up. And there are organizations that try and match tourists with different social programs. There's some sketchy ones out there, so you've got to do a bit of your homework. But yeah, there's different organizations that match you up. In Brazil, I just reached out to a travel concierge company and I said, this is what I want to get out of it. This is what I'm hoping to do. We're doing a cooking class, we're going into a favela, and we're going to see some less known beaches. And they're arranging everything because, I could do it on my own, but I don't have the time. I don't have the I was like, I'm here for a short time. I want to make the most of it.
The most of those hours.
And there are companies, there are agencies on the ground who make this happen.
And what do you think of the movement of Airbnb into that space? I think it's Airbnb. Are they the ones that have now started to market experiences as part of the stays? Is that part of the sort of the evolution of travel you were talking about earlier?
Yeah, exactly. Airbnb took the lead on that, going, well, if you're going to stay in somebody's home, what about having somebody show you around? I'm going to the Bahamas in March. They've got a program called People to People, where you fill out a form with your interests, again, what you're hoping to achieve, and they match you with locals to hang out with for the day.
That's cool.
It's the most amazing program.
I love it.
They've been doing it I think they said it's the 50th anniversary of it, so they've been doing it a long time. What an incredible opportunity. I'm going to be with my daughter, and I said I'd love to find a family, a father, a mom, who has a 12-year-old kid, and they can show us their lives. We can just hang out. I did something similar in Jamaica. Incredible. But so much about travel, meaningful travel, is about the people we meet. Way more than the activity, than seeing a tourist attraction or some beautiful beach. It's really, you come down, I can almost guarantee the biggest impression is going to be, I met this person who broke down the stereotypes, who we had a great conversation, who showed me something I didn't know existed. Often that's like in a restaurant or on a bus or wherever you meet these people. And there are programs that facilitate those meetings, which is a fantastic, fantastic opportunity.
That sure is. I remember being, I was probably 7 or 8 years old, and my parents took my sister and I, she's 3 years younger than me, to Mexico. And the people who ran the resort, they had 2 little girls who were the same age as we were. And I will always remember that trip because I got to experience Mexico through the eyes of a local at the age of 7. And I mean, it doesn't sound like a big deal, but it kind of was compared to other trips where I just sort of felt like I was disconnected from the whole thing. I want to talk for just 1 minute about what I'll refer to as maybe athletics tourism or exercise tourism. Is there a term for that, where people climb or they bike or they hike or they walk? Do you have any great insights there on either your favorite things to do, or what are some of the new and upcoming places in the world that maybe are a little bit lesser known to us?
Yeah, so it's outdoor adventure or soft adventure, which I specialize in, actually. I love it, absolutely love it. I'm not a hardcore backcountry explorer. Everything I've always done has to be doable, approachable, something like that can just take anybody and put them in that space. Sometimes you have to get a little bit fit to do it, sometimes not. There are fantastic companies who arrange all of this. In Canada, I work with a company called Great Canadian Trails out of Ottawa. Fantastic company. They do multi-day bike rides. They set everything up in Prince Edward Island. Through the Laurentians. I'm going to be going to Nova Scotia and doing the Rum Runners Trail with them this summer. the East Coast Trail to do a hike, which is really just a series of incredible day walks along the coast of the Avalon Peninsula with whales breaching. You're just carrying your day pack. They shuttle your bags up ahead. They arrange the accommodation. I think the logistics can really bombard us, can bamboozle us, and feel really overwhelming. So I do place a lot of great store in companies that take care of the logistical stress. And do you pay a premium sometimes? Sometimes you might save money when all is said and done, but they know what they're doing. They've been doing it for years, and they help you make that possible. With a multi-day bike ride, I always thought you have to be super fit and Iron Man and do this whole thing. And it's like, no, you don't. You can do it on an e-bike. So anybody can do it. A little bit of the work's
done for you.
You don't even have to pedal if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But the experience of being on a bicycle and discovering a landscape and the communities that you roll through is completely different than if you were in a car or in a bus. You smell, you feel. It's a full sensory discovery. So I'm taking my dad. He's getting on. He's approaching 80. He's just kind of aged out of being able to ride a bike. But I'm putting him on an e-bike. Let's go. Let's hit the road. You'll love it. Yeah, you can do those kinds of trips everywhere. Another great company is called Backroads. They organize a lot of these trips all over the place, all over the world. Everything you can imagine. Don't be intimidated by the scale of the adventure. Even something like Ivavik National Park in the north, Parks Canada have fly-in hiking and flying.
Really? That's amazing.
They set everything up.
I think that makes it so much more accessible, because maybe for some people going on to the other side of the ocean or going to the other side of the world feels like a bit more of a risk. But for somebody who's a little nervous to step outside their comfort zone, Canada's pretty dang big. And it sounds like we have some great adventures to be able to experience here and in the safety of our own health insurance system, which can be a bit of a consideration for some people too. That's marvelous. I am so grateful for all of these nuggets of wisdom of yours. In closing, this might be a travel anecdote I'm eliciting here, but it might be something else. One of the things I like to ask every guest on the Flourish Feed podcast is about, within the 1,440 minutes you have every single day, there's probably one or two of them that I would call a moment of bliss, which is something that is a disproportionately small thing that causes a disproportionately large and positive feeling for you, something that is joyful, that you seek. Robin Ezrock, tell us a little bit about your moment of bliss.
Every day when I'm at home, I take my kids to school. I do the school run, and waking the kids up. Oh, they don't want to go to bed. They don't want to get up, and they got to get to the nag. I'm in the nag, and I get them up, make their lunches, and take them to school, and I drop them off at school, and I love my kids, but I also love dropping them off at school. Especially after the morning, the morning thing. As they get out the car, it's a quick kind of drop off. There's cars honking behind me, I pull around the side, stop the car, put it in park. I take a breath, and I smile. I force out a smile, even if I am stressed out and I'm in a hurry and there's things to do. Deep breath and a smile. And there is something about physically making your body feel better, even when your mind doesn't necessarily want to feel better, or it literally takes seconds. It's like 20 seconds. I find it, when I'm in traffic, rush hour, and I find my brain start going, oh, I guess the red mist start rising. Stop, pause, smile, and
I love that.
Instantly, you'll feel it. You'll feel the endorphins.
Yes.
You'll trick your brain into going, hey, why are you smiling if you're so stressed? Wait a second, maybe you're not so stressed.
Yes, exactly. Well, between the deep breathing and those two little muscles that apparently can tell our body something remarkable has happened, that smile is a wonderful way of taking yourself from wherever you've just been and bringing yourself to the present moment. That's awesome. I love that. That's totally share worthy. Thank you so very much. Now, I didn't get a copy of this 2025 new edition of the Great Canadian Bucket List because it's not out yet, I don't think. Could you please show us? There we go, ladies and gentlemen. It's beautiful, new and improved. Thank you so much for showing us that adventure is basically a wellness practice, kind of bundled in something that looks like however you want it to look. And I hope you will come and see us sometime, maybe speak to us live. That would be remarkable.
I'd love to. I'd love to. And parting, if somebody is listening to this and thinking, I've always wanted to do that thing. I've always wanted to do it. And we're going to come up with a million excuses why not. There's so many reasons why not to do anything. But we just don't know what's waiting for us around the corner. We don't have nearly as much time as we think we do. And there's never been a better moment than now to say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do it. Be responsible. Your money's well invested. You've worked hard. You've saved hard. But it's okay to spend a little money on things that matter and things that mean something, especially when you can share it with the people you love.
Thank you so much. Words of wisdom. So great to see you today. I look forward to seeing you again soon, Robin. Take care.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.